here, for the record, is I haven't listened to this just yet. I just saw the quote, but this is the vice presidential candidate for Kamala Harris talking about guns, and this is where he says this thing that is being pointed out as stolen valor. This is him.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army, and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
All right, so he clearly said weapons of war that I carried in war. And if you look at like how people generally define stolen valor, it's usually exaggerating your rank.
Or just showing up in the uniform you got at Goodwill.
Yes, yeah, totally. Let's start at that. That's the base value is pretending you were in the military. That's a level of stolen valor. It could also be about exaggerating your rank in the military, which he's also accused of, because on his website he claims a rank that he wasn't actually retired at. It's a different rank. There's an argument for like, hey, as he served, he was at this rank because he was kind of downgraded when he retired. Who cares? I don't think that's a huge deal. But he is very clearly to me suggesting and using as a persuasive argument for gun control that he carried weapons in war. When you say that, you know what people are going to gin up in their minds. They're going to imagine you in a foxhole or something, or patrolling the streets of Iraq with your gun at the ready, whether you ever fired a bullet or not. You're saying you carried those weapons in war. He was never even in the same country as a war. He was in Italy as the war was going on and left before he ended up being called up to active duty in Iraq. I think it's best put this way. If I'm being as fair as possible, I would say Tim Walz certainly flirts with stolen valor. That is what that sounds like to me. And CNN, I think, even came up with the same. I believe when they talked about this, they sort of landed on that same thing. I haven't heard their segment either, so let's listen to this because I found it.
Walz did make a comment speaking to a group. He's done it a couple of times where he has used language that has suggested that he carried weapons in a fighting situation. As you know, with your contact with the military, I know from coming from a military family, there is a difference between being in a combat area, being involved at a time of war, and actually being in a position where people are shooting at you. There is no evidence that at any time Governor Walz was in a position of being shot at, and some of his language could easily be seen to suggest that he was.
All right, that's CNN talking about this. So I think that's just where I'm landing on this. You could disagree, like Craig, to tipsinthenewsjunkie.com. Hi, team. I'm a retired military veteran of 22 years of service. The term stolen valor has been thrown out there about Governor Walz and his service. That term is related to those who say they have served but have never served in the military. Anyways, just wanted to clear that up, says Craig from Denver, Colorado. That's not the definition of the term as I see it, or anybody else who's talking about this, I don't think, sees it. You don't have to just completely make up. Like if I was like, I was a major general in the Marines, just like my father or whatever. You don't have to just completely make something up. You could exaggerate rank, you could exaggerate experience, and that tends to happen from time to time. Is it a super big deal? I don't really think it's a super big deal. But if we're going by that definition, I think he's flirting with stolen valor.